Hey, good day, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on developing a product strategy mindset. This is Anand Vishwanathan here. Really excited to meet you all. In terms of my background, I have close to 15 years of experience in product roles across various different companies, Oracle, Yahoo, and now with Microsoft. I'm with Microsoft now for 11 years, and had a chance to kind of work across multiple different product lines and businesses during my stint out here, ranging from consumer products, ad tech, monetization marketplaces, as well as enterprise SaaS and platform products. The roles have most of my career have been in the product management role. I've also done a stint in product marketing and quite a bit of experience with product and business strategy as well. In terms of today's session, I'm going to be covering what is product strategy and why is it important for product managers, and how do we go about developing a mindset to do product strategy. I'm going to cover the components of a product strategy plan, as well as how can we go about convincing and getting a buy-in on the product strategy from the different stakeholders. Disclaimer here, all the content and the presentation here are my views based on my learnings and experiences during my career. They are not endorsed by any of my current or previous employers or teams. So starting off with product strategy. So product strategy can be thought about a set of choices that a company makes in order to achieve a business objectives. It is a fairly broad, very all-encompassing plan. It typically touches upon things like what products should we build on, which are the target markets or customer segments that we should go and win, what's our right to play, how do we differentiate and win over there, how do we take the product out to market, how do we price it, who's going to sell it, etc., etc. Right? In my experience, good product strategy helps define the goal, the North Star, the vision for the company as well as for the product. It helps the team define a plan, a path to achieve that vision. It guides the allocation of resources. How much should we invest in? Why should we invest in? Make all those decisions. And more importantly, it kind of allows the team to focus on the short term while still steering course and keeping the guardrails are on the longer term goals. In my experience also, the lack of product strategy often leads to the team focusing too much on the here and now, losing sight of the big picture. Often leads to the teams becoming dysfunctional. There's no lack of guidance, there's no leadership, it affects the team morale, and it eventually leads into circumstances which are not generally good and favorable. And I can cite a few examples from my own experiences, which just underscore the importance of product strategy, at least the way we know the key lesson for me there. I've had an opportunity to work in several incubation products. So this is a time when probably one of the best, for a product manager to be in, a time when a small crew comes together, really enthusiastic, passionate, engineers, data scientists, designers, and PMs who are trying to come together, ideate on what is the next product, what's the next big thing that they should be focusing on and they should be building. Ideation, like everything else, typically runs with people coming and contributing their own ideas, very passionate ideas, and then the team will go build it, throw it out there, see what sticks, what doesn't, and then improvise and take it from there. Right. What often happens here is that this passionate group of individuals come together, build it. The product itself evolves in so many different directions, gets steered in so many different directions that one fine day you'll realize you're standing in front of a customer and not able to make a coherent pitch on what the value prop of the product and why they should be using it. And here's where, even for early stage incubation products, I believe having a strong product strategy is helpful. Having a vision, but giving a broad canvas for the team to go and ideate and build and prototype and iterate and validate hypothesis is super helpful. The product strategy, again, is something that the team should be prepared to go and tweak and tune as time progresses and as you validate hypotheses, as you get more customer and market signals. But it's always too good to have one to begin with. There was also a time when one of the teams I've worked on, we were being beaten by competition, and therefore the leadership decided for the next coming releases to focus on plugging the feature parity gaps. Team got super focused on just trying to chase competition. We forgot one thing, which was the competition is also investing, and by the time we had caught up to the competition, or we felt it caught up, their product had taken a completely new direction, right? I mean, this is again where my lesson was, not having like a core product strategy, right? Competitions is always going to be there, but unless we know how we're going to differentiate and win, or what market and segments we think we're going to be stronger at compared to the competition, and going and investing and building for that, we're not going to be successful with that. And so this is where product strategy, in my experience, is important, and is super relevant, right? Now, people often call the PMs as mini CEOs, and rightfully so. I've seen successful product managers being leaders, having the knack and the ability to guide not only the engineering and design team, but also lead pretty much the entire organization around their vision, to go and win and make markets and successful customers successful, right? And in my opinion, in my experience, a key way to do this is for the product managers to have a coherent, compelling product strategy and a vision, and having to go and pitch it, sell it, get the buy-in from all the stakeholders within the company, in some cases outside as well, and then the entire organization will rally behind the PM, to basically go make it happen, right? I think I have seen this to be a very key, lever of success, having a strong product strategy, right? Uh, Developing a product strategy, I mean, I would call product strategy as a mindset, rather than a skill or something that you can just go learn and start to practice, right? I mean, this is something that typically comes good with experience, something that you can build over time, right? I also believe that PMs, irrespective of the stage in their career, should and ought to have a strategic mindset, right? I've tried to list here a couple of pointers or references. By no means is this an exhaustive list, but to begin with, I find frameworks helpful, right? I tend not to use frameworks to the textbook, so you'll seldom find me putting together a deck following a certain template, or a product strategy paper written with specific sections in it. Frameworks to me are more to keep in the back of my mind, and to go just make sure that I'm not leaving any blind holes. I'm just kind of making sure I'm crossing all the boxes, as I think through and paint the strategy. Right, the 5C4P is personally a favorite of mine. I've seen that to be most universally applicable, irrespective of whether I'm doing consumer products or an enterprise or platform products. It's always good to make sure that I've kept a good eye on not only competition, but also collaborators, right? So ecosystems, ISVs. Also, am I keeping an eye out on distribution, product distribution? I mean, we all can build products. I mean, we're surrounded by super smart engineers and designers who can build products. But have you given a thought to how can we take it to market? Is our sales team even equipped to kind of go make that happen, or do we need to rely on a reseller, right? I mean, that's where frameworks kind of help, to just make sure we are well rounded off in our thinking, and we are not leaving any blind holes there. A lot of experts have actually gone out and created or published fantastic concepts. They've studied successful products across multiple different industries, and they've come up with theories like network effects, which is super relevant for, let's say, a marketplace business or a platform business. The aggregation theory, again, super relevant for a marketplace business, and differentiation modes, and there are several others. Right? So there's an area where I would encourage go and read the books, read your articles, watch the videos, understand these concepts, but more importantly, try to apply them, or try to see how successful products are applying or leveraging these concepts, right? I mean, so these are things that are always good to have in your toolkit. Right? And generally, I would say, the way you can go about developing mindset is, given a task, to just don't go about doing it. I mean, step back and think through the why, think to the what if, right? Think about the possible outcomes, right? I mean, so force yourself to think more holistically, more broadly. That would be one tip and one suggestion I would give it. Um, the other suggestion I would give is, volunteer to raise your hand. I do understand that, in most product organization there is the senior leaders who are accountable for product strategy. But in my opinion, it doesn't stop or should not prevent PMs across the different stages to kind of sign up to contribute or help with the product strategy. So go reach out to your leaders, tell them that this is an area you're interested in learning, and raise your hand whenever the right project or opportunity comes. And let's say that the leader is trying to do a complete analysis. Raise your hand, go create your feature parity map, go create your Harvey ball diagrams. But before you go and submit it, go and really think through, what recommendation would you offer? Does your team, your product or component need to course correct? So make that proposal. Go to your leader with the proposal. Your proposal could be wrong, but there's a great opportunity for you to really consult and get counseling from your leaders. And that, in my opinion, is the best way to build and hone this mindset. It takes a while. It's not something you can do overnight. It does take a while, but be at it and you will be successful. In terms of product strategy, I've tried to lay out the different product lifecycle stages and what typically are the different components that fit within a product strategy. I've tried to keep this as generic. So this is applicable whether you're doing a consumer product or a B2B product. It's applicable whether you are doing an early stage or a mature product. Of course, you're different. The weights you give to each of these components is going to differ. If you are a mature product, you already have an existing distribution channel. You probably can go light on the go-to-market aspect of it. If it's an early stage product, you're going to focus more on ideation, market analysis, trends, etc., etc. The flavors would be more context specific, but this framework is, I believe, it's fairly generic and broad. Um, just picking a couple of the boxes out here. When you're focusing on market trends, look at where the market is headed a few years from now. You need time to build a product, and what you want to land and where you want to land is for the future, right? So keep that in mind. The other thing I would say is, develop a knack for picking up the durable market trends. I mean, try to kind of filter out the fads versus trends. A classic case in point, a few years ago, chatbots were like all prevalent. There were multiple industries, consumer, B2B, B2C, pretty much every vertical, every product tried to do something with chatbots. But you fast forward from now, there are very specialized use cases where chatbots have stuck. Right, so customer support and service, one example, right? So try to build an intuition and place a bet on which are going to be the durable market trends. So that's again where you can start specializing in, right? Customer needs, I'll not spend too much about it, but just keep in mind you want to kind of cover both the met, unmet, unarticulated needs as well as you go into your analysis or your development of product strategy, right? Competitive and ecosystem. I mean, the bottom line here is you're trying to identify what is your attack vector, right? I mean, every product, every space that we operate in is there's always going to be a competitor. There's always going to be a substitute available. What you're trying to really find out here is figure out, hey, what's the aperture through which you can operate and really be successful. Total addressable market. I mean, it's typically a directional measure of the size of the canvas or the size of the opportunity or size of the space that you're going to be operating in. Again, I would say the math is less important here. Your numbers could be off by 50%, that's fine. But what is more important and key is how you go about identifying that market. So if you take the example of, let's say, printers, inkjet printers, let's say, one way to do TAM is go figure out how many households would need the printer. It's going to be roughly 125 million, give or take a little, in the US. But the other way you could pivot TAM for printers is actually saying how many copies need to be printed, right? And if you actually look at it through that lens, you are broadening the canvas quite a bit, right? So you're not only looking at devices, you're looking at, let's say, cloud-based printing services, you're looking at B2B, you're looking at printing kiosks, you're looking at possibly printing as a service, etc., etc. Again, this is what you need to focus on here. It's less about the math, but make sure you identify the market, and then you're able to do some kind of a rough sizing in it. I mean, it could be of the order of millions or billions, doesn't matter, right? Precision is less important here. Moving on to target market. Again, that's a key thing, right? I mean, you spot market trends, you have customers, you need to say no. You need to learn to say no to certain segments and shift focus and specialize on certain segments, right? If you take, let's say, payments as an example, there's PayPal, there is Square, they focus on SMBs. Then you have a Stripe, which is common, which is focusing on online-only businesses and helping them with e-commerce transactions predominantly. And therefore, having decided that, you now have a product in PayPal and Square, which are around mobile apps, around POS consoles, etc. And you've got Stripe, which is predominantly an API service catering to the developer persona. So this is again important. So based on what you want to do, you have to really zero in on what is which are your customers and which are not your customers. Okay. Key features and differentiators. I think one thing I've learned through my experience is features are very easy to replicate. You could build a new looking button, you could reduce the number of steps in your checkout, a cart checkout flow, and your competitor will follow suit. I think what's the durable differentiation are things like network effects, things like modes, things like possibly user generated content, or data graphs that you can build experiences around, you can monetize, right? It's easy to build a product review page, right? But unless you are not able to get the flywheel going to have users come back and submit reviews, which are fairly accurate, which are true, and kept up to date, the product is not going to succeed. So think those are the kinds of differentiators that you want within your product that are going to grow and scale and give you the sustainable advantage over time, right? Goals. It's always good to end your product plan with a goal, with a high level or a North Star metric, right? And there's again a lot of art and a science involved here, right? If we take search as an example, it's a consumer product, so it's very easy to go after. We're trying to win market share. It's also easy to go after a revenue share or measure the number of searches, etc. But if you actually look at the goal of search, is to help users find information. So one way to define the goal is to make sure that the first result of the search page is the result that the user wants. And once you have and design a product to meet and satisfy that goal, you will have market share, you will have revenue, you will have usage, you will have retention, you'll have everything follow on, right? So again, trying to peel out and identify that one goal, I think is important, right? So product strategy, typically this is front loaded before you actually start product development or start the next iteration or release. But I do recommend keeping an eye out, or at least having a point of view on the commercialization aspect also at this stage. You don't need to kind of define a true or complete business model, but you need to have, in my opinion, at least an idea on how you're going to monetize. Is it consumption? Is it a license? Is it an ad-based monetization? Because some of the stakeholders, and we'll cover that in a minute, are going to be needing to know that before they align and before they give you their buy-in. Likewise, go to market. How are you going to distribute the product? How do you take it out? How do you gain adoption? You may end up in a situation where your sales force or sales team is focused on a certain segment, say enterprise, and you've got features and you've identified an opportunity to go crack and win the SMB space. You can build a product, but unless you engage today with the sales team and get the buy-in of the leaders there, you're not going to be able to kind of find a channel to go sell your product, right? So these are the different components of a product strategy. And I'm just laying it out here. But again, as you start, thinking and building these up, I think a lot of these pieces will automatically kind of come and fall in place. And again, as I said earlier, it varies depending upon the context of the product and what you're trying to achieve and what life cycle stage the product is, and etc. etc. Okay. And so once you've got your product strategy, you've got an idea, you've got a vision for the product, it is super important and super critical to go communicate it out to all your stakeholders, right? As I said earlier, the PM, successful PMs, they are looking to basically rally the entire organization behind them. And as you go and get a buy-in of your product strategy with the stakeholders, it always is helpful to understand and to articulate and evangelize it, keeping in mind where they're going to come from, what they are looking to get out of you, why they should be aligning to you, what's in it for them. So what I've tried to do on this here is just try to highlight some of the stakeholders. Again, depending upon your organization, your specific teams, your specific stakeholders could be different. And I've tried to also kind of look at, hey, what is the angle or how they're going to be approaching or how they're going to be evaluating or what's in it for them, right? When it comes to understanding a new product strategy and trying to basically support or align to the product success. So if you start off with finance, they're possibly going to be upfront interested in knowing, hey, what's the opportunity? What's going to be the cost, the investment in headcount and going and buying a new company, buying some assets like data licenses, going and buying out, let's say a reseller channel or partnering with a reseller channel to go sell the product. They're going to be interested in that, and therefore they're going to be interested in profitability. One thing I've often seen them focus on is time to first dollar, right? I mean, gone are the days where we could take multiple years to go build a product and get success. I mean, people want cash flows today, right? So these are some of the things to again keep in mind. You are likely to get questions around this, right? If you look at sales and BD, it's about what incentives and quotas. Why should they support you? They already have got the field incentivized to go do a bunch of different activities. But how do you align incentives? Do you need to kind of go get an executive buy-in from them and do all this upfront before you get further down in the product development cycle, right? In case of service and support, again, they have current channels, they have some current programs, their team is trained in a set of tools and a set of have a bunch of expertise there, right? What they're going to be looking to do is, hey, the customer segments, is that something that they can actually go service? Is that something that they touch today? Are the tools ready and enabled to go and help triage and solve those problems, right? We've had an instance where one of the products I was working on, we were trying to basically drive adoption in terms of customer RAM, and one of the hypotheses we had was, can we really allow people to sign in with any kind of an online ID they have, not just restricted to one or two of them, right? But the challenge turned out as we ran the experiment, the results were fantastic because users didn't have to go and sign up for the new ID; they could just log in with whatever ID they use in other places. But one of the challenges we faced there was the support team were not trained to go and help them with, let's say, resetting a password or triage and fix other kinds of issues that they thought could come because of the use of a different online ID or different platform for an online ID. So these turned out to be blockers for the product. So these are things which are good to keep in your mind as you kind of designing your strategy and also communicating it out to the different stakeholders. Your marketing team is going to help you a lot with the value prop articulation, segmentation, positioning. My experience, I found it often useful to really engage with my marketing team during the product strategy work itself. You can they can help a lot with research. They can help with a lot of focus groups, market studies, validation, etc., etc. They also have a pulse on the market as well as the field channels to know what's going to sell and what's not going to sell. So do try to engage with them much upfront, even during the time you're building the product strategy. Okay. So again, here are a few examples, good best practices that I've listed out here. I would say, once you have your strategy, it's always good to over communicate. So go to emails, get into brown bags, stick up posters, create a SharePoint or a wiki site. Over communicate. Always find an opportunity to go, bring a bunch of developers, sell them onto your vision. Really helps, right? Take them into your stride. I mean, let them contribute to it. I mean, if the sales team has got something to share with you, or they can influence your strategy, go seek their help and make them part of this team. Very helpful, right? Always, again, good to refresh your strategy every 6 months. I mean, you want to kind of do the due diligence. You want to go out and share it, communicate, just make it top of mind again with the different teams, right? And finally, I would say, possess a grit and conviction. I mean, your team would have done the work. You've come up with a point of view and opinion on what's important and what's needed and why that's going to be successful. Uh, Things will change. The organization priorities will change. The market will change. You can have a pandemic just washes things out, right? Stick to your grit. Stick to your conviction. Try to keep making progress. You may need to change your execution strategy. Try to be more agile, etc., etc. But just keep at it, and you will be successful. Uh, the last thing I'll leave out is um, try to kind of problem solve. I gave an example of trying to volunteer for some of the product strategy work that your leaders are going to be doing. Here are a few things that you can do as well, right? So you take a product, you take a business, you try to basically mash it up. You come up with your point of view on what should happen, what should not happen, what will work, what will fail. So I've cited a few examples here. You can always take a product and try to figure out, hey, how can it, and if and how it can get into a new market, right? You can take an existing product, or you can pressure test. What if this business model were to change? Would the product need to adopt? Will it's going to open a new customer segment, etc. Right? Um, we're living in a world of technology. Things are evolving. Things are changing. Right? As new technology comes, it's often the job of product managers to go figure out how to build applications and deploy it at scale and even monetize it, right? So that's again a good bucket of exercises that you can do, watching out for emerging trends and trying to figure out what the kind of product vision or what's the kind of product story that can be sold there, right? So this is all I have for you guys today. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, the whole goal here was to just uh, give you guys an inspiration, a motivation to go and start building and honing a product mindset. As I said earlier, and I'll re-emphasize here, it's super helpful and super important, I would say, for product managers, irrespective of the stage of career you are in, to always have strategic thinking. So always understand in detail why what you're doing is important and what it is going to ladder up in terms of outcome, and being able to go and communicate, share it, evangelize it with all the stakeholders that you'll be working with. So I hope this was helpful. It was a pleasure kind of putting this together and sharing it with you all. I wish you all the best for your future. Thank you so much.